The Bank Directors Association of Nigeria has called on the National Assembly to revisit the 70% windfall tax amendment on the Finance Act, saying it is ill-timed and burdensome in light of recent recapitalization efforts in the banking sector. The group stated this in a statement after its meeting, where it called on the National Assembly to engage in constructive discussion while revisiting the amendments. Now, the group in the statement also sought further explanation on what constitutes the FX gains to be taxed and how the federal government plans to address banks which record losses rather than profits. Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO Asha Investment Limited, joins me on this particular segment to unpack the discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Mukhtar.
Thank you for having me, always.
Now, we've actually already discussed the implications of government's decision to increase this windfall tax from 50% to 70% on foreign exchange valuation gains for Nigerian banks. But then, with this new plea coming from bank directors, shouldn't there be a reconsideration?
Well, I'd be surprised if the government have not been thinking of reconsideration, or even before the bank directors are issuing this statement. You shouldn't forget that what the government wanted was 50%, and the National Assembly have taken it to 70%. Maybe that is why the president have not signed it into law yet. He has had meetings with Bank MD, the last time he had with the FCMB, Ladi Balogu, and also had with the chairman of First Holding, with Femi Otedola, which he came out to say it's in support of the policy, and FCMB MD didn't come out clear. He just said that it's not going to affect bank because it's not really realizable income. And so I think it's good that somebody is speaking out for the bank. The directors of the banks are speaking. I for one, think it's a policy that the government need to revisit, especially after these banks have paid about 30% income tax on those. And also the fact that the same CBN, the regulators of this bank, have told these banks not to spend this money and never even to use it for their own operation, because it's a high risk type of income, because again, if the exchange rate goes down, that means that income goes down too. So I think something they should look into.
But then we are in an era where the banking industry is going through recapitalization. We're seeing mergers on some sides. We're seeing acquisitions on some other sides. Some banks are not financially buoyant. Some are even going under. So looking at how apt this particular policy is, do you think it is actually timely?
Well, timely, I don't think so. Because of like what you just said, the banks are going through like a recapitalization. Part of what attract investors to these banks will have to do with the result that have come in the short term. But in the long term, I think most investors will still be interested in the bank. But the timing is what people are talking about, especially when you are telling the bank not to use their retained earnings, not to use their shareholders' fund. They have to source in new funds, and that means they have to attract new investors. And in attracting new investors, that means they have to come up with projection profit and that. So yeah, I think for the timing, it's not the right time to go about such decision. But again, if you look at the bill itself, we don't have retrospective tax bill law in Nigeria. Because again, you are saying that bill, the banks are saying that it should run to the National Assemblies have increased the numbers of years instead of one of 2023. They are trying to see if it could run to 2025. So a lot of this that they are doing is practically not right, especially again when you know that every year they have to come up with a financial bill that would normally go to the National Assembly. And so this National Assembly is already saying that, look, what bill you have, it should run to 2025. I don't think it's right.
So there are even speculations, Mukhtar, that maybe it is all FX-based transactions that will be tasked under this particular policy. So I'd like you to clarify what actually constitutes foreign exchange transactions to be taxed under this new amendment, and how that would even impact banks that are incurring losses rather than gains, how they will be treated looking at this particular policy?
Well, when you look at it, it says income, foreign exchange income. And like I said, some of these income are unrealizable income and reliable income also. So if you look at some of the bank's balance sheet, some of these so-called FX comes in as reliable income, and then the other one comes as reliable income. So they really need to look at the book. Now, when you look at income that are driven by transaction or by maybe a project or loan, then those are reliable income. But when you have income that are driven like what they by because of revaluation of the FX in the maybe due to due to FX revaluation, like I said, this also could be due to government policies and also it could be due to the violation of the currency. So these two policies, they sometimes help banks to have what we call FX gain, but this FX gain are not reliable gain because again, because of the kind of economy that we operate, whereby the exchange rate is not fixed. Sometime last year, this time it was 700. Now it's doing about 1,600. So it's not fixed. So it definitely have impact on the bank. Now, if you look at the bank's balance sheets this year, you realize that a lot of this FX gain that most of these banks shared is due to because of the government policy, which is the floating of the naira. So that again does not even count into their balance sheet. And remember, at the time that this happened was about 1,900, but now we are doing about 1,600. Now, how does that impact bank? It impact bank especially in their expansion drive. A lot of banks are involved in expansion and acquiring a lot of assets outside the shore of this country, expanding their market space. So that is going to be a big challenge for those banks because some of these transactions are done in FX. So that's where I think the challenges are going to. So if you begin to tax this FX gain, and so most of these banks will begin to struggle to pay some of the agreed term in acquiring some of these banks abroad, and that will put a strain on their finances, and that will result into big losses for the banks.
So if we are invariably beginning to see this windfall tax come into play and causing disruptions and fluctuations within that financial space, what do you think it would mean for the investors? You talked about investor sentiments earlier on, but then when they continue to seek this and we try to pin it down to how attractive a banking sector should be, do you think this is a motivation or a demotivation for them?
Well, the Nigerian banks are very resilient. So definitely it could be a source of opportunity for designing investors because this cycle will come and go. And like I said, remember that what the banks are looking for now, most of them would have been able to get it through their retained earnings. So that retained earnings still there. Some of them, their retained earnings even higher than what they are telling them to recapitalize, especially the tier one banks. Some of them have retained earning about 1 something trillion, and what you're taking them to recapitalize about 500 billion. So what it means is that investors have about 1 something trillion waiting for them to share, in spite of whatever comes out from those results from the bank, especially in the short term. But you know that, like I said, the resiliency of the banks, and then if you are trying to drive a $1 trillion economy, then the banks also are the major drivers of those trillion naira economy or $1 trillion economy. They are the one that they are the first the catalyst to that. So what you see is that most of the funds that these banks are now asking for investors are driven towards expansion in either to generate other product in the fintech place, or like I said again, expansion into other shore of Africa and the global market. So you are not seeing some of this funding coming back into the shareholders fund. So what will happen now is that what you see is that in the short term, most of these funds are going out into this other space, maybe developing other products and also expansion, which in the long term will drive profit that will also go back into the retail earnings of the bank. So um, I don't think it's so much of a big challenge for designing investors. But again, when you are looking at policy somersault in terms of government policy, that could also be that could make you, that could also not be nice for those that want to invest in the bank, because they'll say, okay, if you can get a law like this that has to be backdated and also have to run more than the a year that the government even wanted it to be, so why are you sure that they won't come up with another law tomorrow? And so that's for me, that's the major challenge of most investors investing in Nigeria these days, because of some sort of policies. You have this policy today, then tomorrow you are not sure which other policies will come. So definitely, it's not that investors are not are attracted to the Nigeria market. They will continue to be attracted to the Nigeria market. But the major challenge has been in terms of policy decision and policy direction and policy duration. That has been what has been making investors stay a little bit away from the Nigerian market, especially foreign direct investors compared to portfolio investors. Portfolio investors are still coming because they come for the hot money. We are giving them high yield. And so they will definitely come. But for foreign direct investors, who are in terms the one that will create jobs and galvanize your economy in the long term, they want to come to an economy whereby they are not sure of the policy direction in the next 3 to 4 years.
And one other concern we may need to look at is the fact that government said the funds generated from the windfall tax will be used for infrastructure projects and social intervention programs. And judging by antecedents and what we've even seen in the last 1 year, would you say that this is not probably too much pain for the financial industry, or a concentration on the financial industry for a supposedly lost cause?
Well, like I said, windfall are taxed in other economy, but then those are things that are already in the constitution of those. It's not something you just wake up in a day and say, "Oh, this is where I've made so much money, so we need to tax it for infrastructure." Some of these wind funds, the developed economy, they already know what they will be used for. Sometimes some of these wind funds are used for education purposes to reduce the fee of some of the less privileged in the society. Sometimes these funds in developed nations also find their way into key areas that will create employment for their citizens. So when you look at that, yes, what government is talking about, infrastructure development, social intervention, transparency, and accountability. You know that in terms of infrastructure development, that seems to be the only one that has worked. Social intervention, when you don't have data, we know what has happened in the material and ministry. Our monies were being siphoned up to this day. The former minister is being tried. The incoming minister was also sacked or suspended from our position. Also, up to this time, there's no minister for that ministry. So, and then we talk about accountability and transparency. It has not happened in any of these government policies. So, when you look at what they are saying, what these funds have been using, what have been done before, they are not too excited that this fund will make the meaningful impact that it's supposed to do in the economy. So for me, that is the challenge of everybody that says, okay, even if at the end of the day you have to tax this windfall, it's the same of saying that we've always had infrastructure development, healthcare, education. But the more you see, the less you understand, because at the end of the day, they don't seem to have so much impact. So maybe this administration might be different. I don't know. But again, if you are going by past antecedent, you are not so excited that this windfall will make any difference in the Nigerian economy.
All right, thank you so much, Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Ashar Investment Limited, for sharing your thoughts and time with us.
Thank you for having me.